informed that his son Joseph, whom he never expected to see in the morning, was indeed not only he wasn't dead, but he was the viceroy of Egypt, and it was the ultimate uh, uh, joy in Yaakov's life. They had to go through this whole period, but again, the rabbis say that Jews had to go down to Egypt, and here they went down in a wonderful way. The leader of Egypt was a Jew. He was far ahead of the Pharaoh in intelligence, and he saved the land during the famine. Anyway, but that we'll get to later. So we'll go through some of the story. There's so much in this parsha. It begins with the story of how Joseph tells his dreams. He has two dreams, and the dreams in the dreams shows that the brothers bow down to him, and the first they were bundling bundles in the field, and the brothers bundles bowed down to Joseph's bundles. And another dream he had that the sun and the moon and 11 stars of heaven bowed down to him. Well, all these dreams, I mean, it is that he was aggrandizing himself over all the other brothers. They didn't like this. Now we know, and they wanted to get rid of him. Why? Because he wanted that they should be read out of the legacy of Abram and Yitzchak, Yaakov, and he wanted it should be Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yosef. And just like Abraham had two sons, and the one who inherited the blessings of the chosen people of God was Yitzchak, not Yishmael, was pushed to a side because of his actions. And next is Yitzchak has two sons, Yaakov and Esau. And Yaakov is the inheritor of Yitzchak and Esau because of his actions. He didn't want the responsibility of being the chosen people. Chosen for what? Chosen to spread godliness in the world. And you have to live a godly life. And both Ishmael didn't want that, and Esau didn't want that, and Joseph saw that the brothers misbehaved in his judgment, but he was wrong in his judgment, and he wanted that they should not be in the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but it should only be the first fourth in that line should be Yosef, and the brothers should go the way of Ishmael and Esau, and it should be the brothers, all of them. Benjamin wasn't born yet, but the brothers didn't want that. They wanted to be part of the legacy, and uh, they didn't understand why Joseph was making was claiming to be the inheritor, and the thing is that Joseph had a neshama de atzilus. He had the loftiest soul, and the brothers also had souls, but not as lofty as Yosef. And the, uh, the argument between them was uh, the uh, the brothers saying that they also want to be part of this legacy. They're not shrugging off the Jewish legacy, the Torah legacy. And he's making up stories about them. And he has the dreams of their bowing down to him. And they felt that they should get rid of him because he's trying to get rid of them. Not physically, but for the legacy of the Jewish heritage. And that was that was the fight between them. And ultimately, we see how it comes that Joseph's dreams were correct. They did come down and bow to him when they went down to Egypt. They didn't know it was him, but the dreams that he has in the first part of the Sedra are true. The father tried to discourage them, but and to say that the dreams are not dreams that are going to be actualized, and it's very interesting how dreams play a big role in these chapters and these uh, concluding chapters of the book of Bereshit. But before we go into the actual story, I want to tell you something a story that I read that is very powerful. And I just read it yesterday. Yesterday was a very holy day and a happy day in the history of Lubavitch. It was Yutes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, when the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shner Zalman of Liadi, was released from Tsarist imprisonment. So he was framed by, unfortunately, by Jews that they couldn't stand. And the success of the Hasidic movement that was started by the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael ben Eliezer, Rabbi Yisrael ben Sarah, and he started the whole movement that uh, that made every Jew important. That and it did not neglect the plain person, and made all of the Jewish people feel important, that they were God's children. They and part of the special people of Israel, and the 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 this the and he spread the teachings of Hasidus, first the Baal Shem Tov, then his successor, the Maggid of Mesedich, Dober, who was the Rebbe of the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe spread. He was the founder of Lubavitch, and he was he um, he sent huge amounts of money that he collected to the Jews that went to Eretz Yisrael. One of the great Hasidic leaders went to Israel, and the Alter Rebbe wanted to go also, but he stayed here to keep Hasidus thriving in Eastern Europe, and the opponents of Hasidus uh, 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 came to the government and said these Jews are committing treason because Israel uh, was in the hands, the land of Israel was in the hands of the Turks, who were enemies of Russia. And the Alter Rebbe wasn't sending money to the enemies, he was sending it to Israel, to the Jews that had made the settlement in living in Israel, and actually all the Jews who were living in Israel. But he was arrested, and for 53 days he was in the Soviet Tsarist imprisonment, and it's a very intriguing story. I'm sure we've talked about it before, and there are many things that took place that the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shtir Zalman Ladi, was known in the government of and the land as a great scholar, and they knew that there was something wrong with the accusation. But since they had him in their custody, the Tsar came, the Tsar himself came to visit the Alter Rebbe to talk with him, and because he knew that he was a holy person and a great intellectual, and so he dressed himself. He took off his royal clothes and went in peasant clothes to come and just. Of course, the people know the government people knew that that it was the Tsar, but he didn't want the Alter Rebbe to know that the king himself, the Tsar, is coming to visit him. So he dressed himself in plain peasant clothing. But as soon as he walked in, the Alter Rebbe got up and said, "Good evening, Your Majesty." I called him Your Majesty, Your King. And there when his whole identity was somehow he realized that he was a king, that the Alter Rebbe The Shir Zalman knew that he was the king of Russia, the Tsar. So he asked him, "How did you know?" I tried so hard to hide my identity. I wanted not to speak to you as a king, but as a plain person. I wanted to talk to you. He said, "Look, you know, from the inner part of the Torah, the esoteric part, we are taught that every human king has an aura, a ray uh, of the king, the Almighty King, the King of Kings, the God Almighty. Every ruler, the ruler of a country, he is the king. He has this automatically. He gets an aura, a halo, a shot of something that people don't see, but he has it, and some people do see it, and he didn't want, exalt himself out there. He said, "But I saw it, and that's why I got up for you and addressed you as Your Majesty." The other famous story that the minister of education came to visit the Alter Rebbe, and he didn't come incognito. He came as the minister of the education in Russia, the Tsar's minister, and he came as the minister of education. And he wanted to. He said, "I'm a pressing question to ask. That I'm a biblical scholar. I've studied the scriptures, and right from the first story in the Bible, in the scriptures, in Genesis, something bothers me. I don't understand it. When Adam and Eve sinned, and God uh, wants to punish them for not keeping the one commandment that He gave them, not to eat from one of the trees in the garden, the tree of knowledge, and they ate from it, and they knew that there would be a whole different. They felt a whole difference in their life once they sinned and they hid. They knew that they had transgressed God's will, and God comes, and the first thing God says to them is, "Ayeka, where are you?" They're hiding in the Garden of Eden, and God is calling to them, "Ayeka, where are you?" Like as if He didn't know where they were. What kind of command? We're talking about God who knows everything about everybody. So you can't hide from God. So this is like it's deprecating God. He has to hear from the people where they are before discovering where they are. Come on, that's what the Minister of Education is saying to the Alter Rebbe. I know what, and then he tells me, I know what Rashi says. He even studied the commentary. He studied from a Jewish Chumash. He was a very educated man himself. And Rashi said to start the conversation and not overwhelm them. So, but I want to hear something deeper. Can you tell me? And the famous answer was, he asked the Minister of Education, do you believe that the Torah that is eternal? He says yes. He was a religious man, and his Alter Rebbe told him that every man, Adam means is man. Man is called Adam. The just as the first man is called Adam, every human, every male, every is called Adam, and humanity are called the Adam people, and they made in the image of God. Adam also means Adam El Elyon. They are made in the image of God, and they have the ways of God in them. God created them as humans with some knowledge of their creator. But he says that he told him that God comes to a 55-year-old individual, and that Minister of Education was exactly 55 years old. And he talks to him personally. And he asks him, Ayeko, where are you? Meaning, where are you in your spirituality, in your coming closer to realize your creator? A person has to come every day, has to be 24/7, coming closer and closer every day of your life. That's the name, that's the purpose of creation, is to bond with God. Where are you in this bonding? Now, this is God hides himself in this world, and you got to find him. I mean, you have to, and you find him when you work on it, when you pray to him, when you learn about him. Where are you? And that made a very big impression that God is talking to me, to everybody, every other, every human, asking that question. And we have to hear that question from God, every person, every day. We have to, where are we? Are we growing spiritually? Are we being better people? And that was and the this you could spend the whole week learning about those incidents, and the story of the Alter Rebbe, called the Old Rebbe, that because he was the first one. Anyway, I saw a very interesting yesterday, a little vignette, a little story about the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Menachem Mendel, the grandson of the Alter Rebbe. And a person came to him who was bothered by something in his own life, and he tells the Tzemach Tzedek, I have doubts in my mind about the existence of the Creator. And what can you tell me about that? I should get rid of the doubt. That's terrible. If you have doubts about the existence of the Creator, he tells me, I saw him. How do I know that he exists? So the Tzemach Tzedek asked him, my good friend, is there a king in Russia? Is there a czar? He says, yes. Says, how do you know? Did you ever see him? He said, I never saw him, but my brother saw him. Aha, I said. So because your brother saw the czar one time in a parade and going to the palace or whatever, for whatever reason, he saw the czar. So that now you believe that there is a czar, there is a king, on the basis of your brothers having seen the king. Well, I got good news for you. You're my friend. You're a student. You know, I saw the king. I saw the creator. And just like you believe that there's a czar, there's a king in Russia because your brother saw him, I can uh, take away your being bothered by this fact that you never saw God and therefore you have doubts about his existence, just like you believe you're in the king because your brother saw him. I see God. What is that? You know, that through the his that's what really Hasidus brought to the world and what Torah brought to the world. That though you cannot see physically, you cannot see the Creator as many times that the Creator, his essence, you can't understand and you can't see him. But his existence, that is proof, you know, and Hasidus is a whole study of his existence. His essence, we don't know. We're not, it's not intended that we should know his essence, but there's enough to bring awe and reverence into our life by knowing the existence of the Creator, the date, the year 2448 was on the sixth day of the month of Sivan. God appeared, and what an awesome moment that was when 3 million individuals of all backgrounds all heard and saw the Creator. They heard his voice, I am God, your God, who took you out. And they couldn't take it. Their souls, as soon as they heard God, the souls left their bodies because they wanted to become attached to the Creator. And they died on this world, but that's not the purpose to leave this world. God put us on this world to remain here and bring him into the world by doing what he wants. And so it comes through the seeing God is the Ene Seichel, the eyes of the brain that understands and the existence of God and feels that moment. And we're supposed to remember, that's one of the mitzvahs, to remember that day and that we stood at the mountain of Sinai, 3 million of all our great grandfathers, and we stood there also in our souls. But that was the most important day in the creation of the world, and we experienced the revelation. So that and the teachings of Hasidus make it much. The whole Torah, there is the revealed part and the esoteric and the hidden part of the Kabbalah, and studying both of them and studying at least for a little part of the day, if you can, the bigger part of the day. The Rambam says in a 12-hour day, you should spend 3 hours in what you have to do to maintain yourself physically, and 9 hours studying and praying. Okay, that's not very possible in the lifestyles that we have, but you have to have a period when you pray and when you study. When that has to be daily to keep in touch with your Maker and not waste time on foolishness. Okay, we'll get now to the portion of the week, and the section that I want to study is so much in this portion, but when Jacob is sold down to Egypt and he winds up in the house of Potiphar, who is a minister in Egypt, and he becomes a servant of Joseph becomes a servant of Potiphar, and amazing everything in Potiphar's house and is blessed. Everything that Joseph does brings blessing into the house, and he's so able and he's so willing to manage all the affairs of the house, of his, his state, but he was a very important man, Potiphar. And so he leaves everything. He runs the house better than Potiphar ran it, and everything is blessed. His economic status is blessed. He makes much more money than he ever did, and and Joseph is a very handsome young lad, and he's all of 17 when he was sold out to Egypt. And the story of the wife of Potiphar falls in love with Joseph, and she wants that he should commit adultery with her. And that's in the Torah to teach us how a person handles tests, because this is the world of tests. And we see how our great figures, our patriarchs and their progeny, handle tests. So we'll learn about this. And you have to, my eyesight isn't what it once was. And I hope and pray that I can do something to improve it. Thank God I can, but I have to look very close. And Okay, I'm going to start uh, on the third page of this particular. It's Vayeishev Parsha Zion 87, and in the article Midrash, it's Gimel. Now it's not the Gimel of this from the beginning, but it's Gimel means the third of this portion. Dover Acher, something that the Midrash is gonna teach. Joseph said, Omar, Abba Nisnasre, my father, Jacob, was tested. Zikni Nisnasre, my grandfather was tested. And he did something which you're not really supposed to do. You're not just supposed to ask God. We ask just the opposite. Don't test us. Don't bring us to tests that are hard for us to overcome. No, and the test actually, if you overcome it, it makes you stronger. But hey, this is the world of deed, and the consequence, and the next world is the consequences of the deed. And we plain people ask God, and we have in our morning prayers, Al Soyin, don't bring us to test ubizoyin and shame. Hey, how many people were tested and failed in all the different situations where they, for a moment's pleasure, they lost everything they had. Adulterous affairs by governors, by senators. They were tested, and they didn't keep themselves away from the test. They indulged in it, and they lost everything they had. But here we find that hey, I want to be like uh, my father and my grandfather, uh, my father Jacob, my grandfather Isaac, and my great grandfather Abraham. And he says, Abonis Nase, Kenai, my father was tested, my my grandfather and great grandfather were tested, Nase, Ba'ani, and Misnase, and I'm not being tested. So, it's like, I want to be like them and want to win the test that made them great, that they were tested and they didn't waver, they didn't fail the test. So God saw the yearning of Joseph to be tested. Oh, my Lord, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said to him, Chayecha, Shani Menaseh Israch, Yeshe Mehem, I will give you a test that's even greater than the test that I gave them. They had tough lives, as we learned before in all the parshas up to this one. And so Rabbi Menachma b'shem Rabbi Bidai Omer. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman. So God tells her, I'm going to bring a test on you. I'm skipping over some of the lines that aren't important, but I'm bringing now a statement of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman. Arurim Hei Marishoim. Cursed are the wicked ones. And wicked here, now God tells him, you wanted a test, I'm going to give you, because you're great, that what made your ancestors great, your father and your grandfather and your great grandfather, and you want to join that greatness, which they became great because they passed their test. So, and you're feeling rejected because God's not giving you a test. Okay, God says, I'll give you a test. And what was the test? The test was that his very successful stay in the management of Potiphar's household, but that brought him in contact with the wife of Potiphar. And she becomes very much in love with Joseph, and she says it as it is stated in the text of the Parsha. She says to him, "Shikri imi, lie with me, you know, have intimacy with me." And and Rabbi Shmuel analyzes that what she said, comes straight out and tells him, "Lie with me, you know, lay with me." And look at, there was a time in the story of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth was a convert, and Naomi was one of the matriarchs of the time. And Ruth clung to Naomi, and she became Jewish. She converted. And Naomi, she went in the fields of, you know, the story of Ruth. She went to the fields. They came into Israel. They came back. They had left it because during the poverty, during the famine, and now they came back, and they were poor. And Naomi lost her husband and both her sons, but one daughter clung to her. That was Ruth. And we know that story, and we know also that Israel provides, the Torah provides for poor people who don't have their own fields. Every Jew who does have his own field has to have a portion of that field that should be harvested by the poor. and the poor would come on the field and harvest what they need. Some fields were very big, and there was enough for the poor. Every field had to have payoff, a corner of the field that's not theirs. It belongs to the poor. God said so. And so she goes, Ruth goes, and she gathers the produce, and she happens on the field of Boaz. Boaz is the judge of the time there, the head of the nation, which in that period was ruled by judges. And Boaz had lost his wife, and he was 90 years old, and Ruth was 40 years old. And she brought the wheat that she harvested, and which Naomi, her mother-in-law, they lived together, made challah, made cakes from the wheat that was harvested by her. And Naomi knew that Boaz was a relative. And Boaz had a relative had an obligation of taking taking the wife of a dead relative who died without children and as wife. And so Naomi planned that this should be made known to Boaz. And anyway, they want to contrast here how the wife of Potiphar wanted said seductively to she is okay. She said, "Shikvi imi, lie with me, lay with me," you know. And Ruth came down to the place where Boaz was harvesting his crop, and he laid in a corner of his field, and Naomi knew that he was there. And it was a happy time, and he was also, shearing the sheep, and she lie down next to Boaz while he was asleep. And when he awoke, she said she didn't make the proposition as animalistically. She said, "Uparasta knafecha al amasecha." She reminded him that you have the duty to take me as a wife because you are a relative. And my husband who died without children. And so she said these words. She said, different than Potiphar's wife. She said, "Uparasta knafecha ala masecha." You should take me, and you should spread your wings over your maiden, your maid, Amasecha. That means you should make for me a house, or I should become your wife. But she didn't tell him. She didn't tell him. Say like this. I'll see. Tell you what. I'll read what the Tana in the Midrash says how she approached him, and that's why he says Arurim Marishoim. Cursed are the wicked ones, and he contrasts the way Joseph was being seduced by the wife of Potiphar, who tells her, lie with me outright, to the way Ruth, who has a correct law of that she is the candidate, that he should take her because he's the relative of her husband, Machlon, what, and so she said, make uparasta knafecha olai. You should spread your wings over me. I should become part of your household. And the way the marriage would be consummated would, of course, be they're living together, having the intimacy together. But if she didn't say it outright like that, lie with me, she was there. It was very possible for her to say that because she positioned herself right next to him while he was sleeping, and he got very scared when he noticed that she was there. And then she said that, I'm your relative, and through your husband who passed away without children, and you're the inheritor of his whatever he has, and that means me. I was his wife, and now I should be your wife. And that's legally according to Alpi Torah. But it's the way she puts it, and this is a lesson, of course, to us to never speak profanely. And Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman, Arurim Hema Rishoim, cursed are the wicked ones. Lahalan, look at how a tzaddik, a tzaddikis, a righteous woman, who was programmed and encouraged and told by her righteous mother-in-law, who she stuck with, that go down to the field where he is, and she wanted that the marriage should be consummated right away, and so that she should be entered into the household of Boaz, the judge. And so when he wakes up in the middle of the night there, and she says, spread your wings over me. Uvarasta knafecha al amasecha. Spread your wings, means what you have. Cover me. Your servant, your maid servant. That's the way she propositioned Boaz. Abozu, this one, the wife of the propositioned, the wife of his master, Potiphar, propositioned Joseph. And he what does he call this? He said, Avozu Kibehema. She approached him like behemoths, like animals who mate together without any introduction. And just so you know, however they communicate with each other. But Tamer, she said, Shikva im'i, lie with me. So what we take away from this is a lesson that in every area of our life, we have to use proper language. And we should never use foul words that people use when they get angry, or when they use all kind of obscene language. You have to, your language has to be, and God's listening. As it says in Pirkei Avot, know what's above you. Ayin roeh, there's an eye that sees, the ozen shomas, an ear that hears. So, don't swear. Yeah, and don't speak dirty, obscene language. That you can take any words. There are words that are obscene words that have, thank God, have not left my mouth. And I'm sure some other people also who are listening and never hear on this year. But that's also that's a one of the don'ts. Don't speak obscene language. And they compare the two situations. Potiphar's wife, how she proposed intimacy with Joseph, and how Ruth proposed intimacy, and who had every right. This wasn't adultery, like what she was proposing. Even though the Portion also say that she had in mind having she had in mind that knew astrologically that there would come a offspring from her. But she made a mistake. It wasn't from her. It was from her daughter, Osnas. Aspotiper. She became, Paro gave her And she was actually a convert from before. It's the whole story, but she was from the family uh, of the Dina, the one who was raped by Shem, and she was taken down to Egypt and was adopted by the same Potiphar who bought Joseph when he was brought up. He and Joseph was blessed by God in everything he did. There's that Bayar Adonai Yosef ki Hashem imo. He saw that God was with him. He knows that he had super success, but he said he saw that God was with him. And the portion, the commentators say, God was with him. They say, Shei Shamayi Shover B'Fiv. The name of God was always in his mouth. Thank God, God willing. He was a walking picture, an example of somebody who leads a godly life. So, again, another thing that we, even though we see here that he asked for the test, not this particular, but he said, because if you're tested and you're in the prop in the difficult situation of whatever you come in a test, your God is testing you, and you have to get your spirituality working, trust in God, faith in God, belief in God. And that's hard when you see difficult situations, tempting situations like what's going on over here with, with lust and this was he asked for it, testing because he wanted to become strengthened and spiritually more exalted, like his grandfather. He said they were tested and they became stronger and they became more close to God. They bonded with that they relied on God. They called on God. It says by Abraham that Abraham, his great grandfather, was tested by 10 tests. He came to the realization that there's one God who's intelligent in his intellect. There's one omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent creator. And he waited that the creator should reveal himself to him and tell him what to do. And the creator tested him with 10 tests. The final test being the binding of Isaac on the mountain, which became the place of the Beis Hamikdash. That God told him to offer him up on the mountain. We know that. And at the last second, he was told, don't do it. This is just a test, And he finds a ram in the thicket and takes out the ram and slaughters the ram and offers the ram instead of his son. And the ram's horn becomes a symbol of Jewish survival and the sound of the shofar. It says it'll be on that day, and the great shofar will be sounded. And those of Boho'obdim Eretz Ashur Baridochim Eretz Mitzrayim, those who are trapped in the land of Syria, and those who are in the land of Egypt. Each country symbolizes, but means Jews who are all dispersed. And they will come, they will come to Isakabu Hashem HaKodesh. They'll bow down on the holy mountain. They will come to Eretz Yisrael. And the blast of the horn, and it's not a fairy tale, God forbid. It'll be one great day, and then we will, all the Jewish people living in all the different sections of the world will be brought to Israel, the Holy Land, with the holy people. And the occupation of everything will be to get to know God better. And the teachers will be those Jews who occupy themselves when before the horn was blown. Occupied in bonding with the Creator. So she propositions him. Ein, he refused. Vayomel Ashes Adonav, he said to her whole thing, how could I do such a thing? Your husband entrusted me with the whole household and gave me everything to be in charge of, except you, his wife. And how can I do that? Yehuda bar Rabbi Amar, bidvar mitzvah ein mima'anin. When you're faced with doing a mitzvah, it says here in this, you don't refuse. Okay, you're obligated to do the mitzvah, and I will say which mitzvah soon. That is an example of this. Joseph Vaimai, he refused. So this teacher of the Midrash says, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman, Yehuda bar Rabbi Amar, Bidvar mitzvah ein mimoni. There's no, when you have to do a mitzvah, you can't refuse. It's incumbent on you. Bidvar avera, when it comes to sin is facing you, mimani, you refuse. Now he's going to show. And he gives an example. Bidvar mitzvah ein ma'amanin. When it comes to a mitzvah, you can't refuse. And what is it there? The mitzvah. Give me, they bring down the mitzvah of Yibu. deliberate marriage. That basis a person, he got he has if he has two choices. Uh, Again, you have a situation like Ruth had, that the husband died without children. One of the brothers, and this is it, has to marry her, uh, and preferably the oldest brother. But there is a second way to uh, break the bond. That bonds every uh, married person who has brothers, the where the marriage resulted in children, so there's no way that you could marry your brother to take the wife of the other one who left children. Today, it has to be somebody who takes you. It has to be only because he wants to do the mitzvah of carrying forth the brother's name on his property, on his children. But it has to be that, not because of a love of his brother's wife, and that's not possible. It's only for big tzaddikim. So there's a second choice in the Torah, and that is he has to give uh, one of the brothers gives chalitza. It's a form of a divorce, and that breaks the bond, and he doesn't, that releases her from not being able to marry anybody else except one of the brothers. But here it's not going to take place, marrying. So it has to be chalitza. It's rare, but it's done. And I partook in one part of the Besson in a situation where a woman who was married maybe 16 years, and they didn't have any children, and her husband died, and he left a lot of brothers. So there was an obligation, at least on one of them, because the obligation was on the family, and it wasn't on a particular brother. Any of the brothers could have done it, preferably the oldest, but if the oldest didn't want or couldn't, whatever, it was and it's a whole thing. That Bezdin has to be there, and she has to she has to take off the shoe and spit in his face, and it's a whole form. It's again, it's rare, but it has to be done in a situation. In all my years of being a rabbi, I took place in exactly one of these cases as a judge, and it was in another country actually. But so, but there you we're talking now about what you can. It says Joseph. It says Vayimo Ein. Vayomel Ishisadonov, in the whole speech that he gave to the woman, the wife who was trying to seduce him. So again, Vayimo Ein. because this wasn't a mitzvah, this was an avera. And that's what this Tana, rabbi of the Midrash, Bidvar mitzvah, and any matter of mitzvah, aim the morning. There's no refusal. I don't want to do it. But Bidvar avera and a sin, like Maman, and you have to refuse. And he gives all the reasons why he refused. Vayomer, first of all, he doesn't want to do this to hurt his master. And another thing he told her, Amar Law, Lamud Hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Li Yos Boisher Huve Beis Abba Lo'ola. Hey, my the household that I come from the fathers, the chosen ones, they are called upon sometimes to become an olah, an offering to God, like Yitzchak was, not being killed, but being offered up, like God told Abraham when he asked him, I believe I do anything you tell me, but could you explain to me why one time you tell me that all my generations are going to be the chosen people, and from Yitzchak, they'll come out of Yitzchak, and then you tell me take Yitzchak and bring him up on the mountain as an offering, an olah. And so isn't that a big contradiction, one thing to the other? And God told him, I didn't tell you to slaughter him on the mountain. I told you to bring him on a mizbeach, do everything you do to an animal on a mizbeach, but I never told you slaughter him. In inferences, yes, that's what you do with offerings. You slaughter them. But I never used that term, slaughter him. I never told you to beach also. Slaughter him. I told you bring him up. You brought him up, now bring him down. But I realized that you were ready to give him up as an offering. There's never been a situation that when God ever asked for a human being to be slaughtered, and this was the one time that God asked a human being to be offered. This was a test, and Abraham was tested 10 times, and he passed all the tests. And of course, that made him the man he was, Abraham, the father of the Jewish people. So this is one of the things he tells her. I might be asked that I should be brought up on the mountain like my grandfather Isaac was, and if I live with you and do that a sin, I will never be accepted. stuck to each other. He said, if I do the sin with you, Eshmalech, if I listen to you, you're telling me to lie with you, I could never qualify as offering. Shema ebocha leola. Maybe God will want to. I should go through the same test as my grandfather. But if so, mean hakorban, I will be puzzled, profaned. I will not be able to go up on the mountain and be brought up and then of course taken down. And if I lie with you, I will become Tomei. And so I tried. He refused. The Baracher, something else. Vayemer el Ashes Adonai, he said to the master, to his wife, to the wife of his master, Amar Loch, he said, Lamed HaKadosh Baruch Hu li yesh nigla al ahuve beis Abba. God is regular in appearing to the individuals of my father's house. And that's at night. Lias nigla al ahuve beis Abba b'laylo. Abraham to him at night. Achad dvarim ha'ela. Haya dvar Hashem el Abram. God spoke to Abraham the Machazeh in a vision. It was at night. Yitzchak. Vayera elav Hashem b'layla hu. God appeared to Yitzchak on that night. Yaakov. Vayachalom b'hinei sulam musav artzav. Jacob had a dream at night and saw a ladder with its feet on the ground and its head in the heavens. Eshmalech, if I listen to you, B'Shema Yigoa Alai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, maybe God will reveal himself to me. V'yimtza Osi Tomi, if I lie with you, I will become impure. And God doesn't reveal himself to impure people. Tavracher, Hein Adoni, look, Amallah, Misyada Ani. I'm afraid to do this, to be with you, to commit adultery with you. Uma Adam Arishain. Look, the first man, Adam Arishain, Adam. Al mitzvah kala. On a little mitzvah that God told them, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. You know, and what happened? They did. We know the story. Nitzaba, the Orbar, and they failed the test and they ate from the forbidden fruit. The Nitrad, the Gan Eden, they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Zu, she Avera Chamura, Gilia Ha'is. This, which is a difficult sin. It's one of the three sins that you rather die than be transgress. And that, you know, the first one is not to bow down to idols, and even if you're forced, and says, "I'll kill you if you don't kiss the cross," or "I'll kill you if you don't convert to my religion," and you have to rather die than give up your religion. Look, what's the pearl? The writer was killed by the Muslims. They offered him to convert, and then he said he's born a Jew, he's going to die a Jew, and he had his head chopped off. Of course, he went straight to Gan Eden, no matter how observant he was in his life, but he gave the ultimate sacrifice. He gave his life. Forgot the first name. I believe the last name was Pearl. And that happened in our lifetime. Alachas kama v'kama. So, we know the history. He told her, Adam and Eve, what did they do? They ate from a tree they shouldn't have eaten. They didn't commit adultery. Adultery is one of the, it wasn't, wasn't possible for them to commit adultery. They were made for each other. What was their test? A test if they to eat from the tree of knowledge or not. They could have the whole garden. They could eat. They could eat the plums and the pumpkins and the melons and the all the other trees of orange, apples, whatever, but not from the tree of our knowledge, whatever that fruit was. Some say it was grapes. And so that got him evicted. When they transgressed that, that got them evicted from the Garden of Eden. This sin, which is adultery, which is forbidden for Jew and non-Jew alike, how much more so? So he kept on telling her things here. That why he doesn't want to do it. Hein Adoni Misyara Ani Abba Shebe'eretz Canaan. Hey, another thing he tells her. I'm afraid of my father who lives in Israel, in Eretz Canaan. Reuven ayidei shekasuv bo vayelech Reuven vayishkabes bilho. Scripture says that Reuven, whose mother was Leah, and after Rachel died, Reuben felt that his mother was snubbed, and instead of going to her, to Leah now be his main wife. Okay, Rachel was his main wife till then. He was fooled by the father-in-law Laban to taking Leah, and his mother had a helper, a woman who was she was also considered one of the mothers, matriarchs of the Jewish people. It was Bilhah and Zilpah. And he felt that Reuben felt that his mother should be the next permanent wife, or main wife of Yaakov, his father. And he did something. Some say now that he, it says in scripture that he lied. He was intimate with Bilhah, and but the Mepharshim say he was not intimate with her. It's just that he took his mother's bed and put it in the tent of Jacob, and took out the bed of Bilhah, because he felt that his mother's honor was disregarded by Jacob, who went to his wife's surrogate rather than to one of the women that he was married to, his mother Leah. And that's counted by his removing Bilhah's bed from Yaakov's tent. That was counted as if he actually lied with her, but he never did. But that's how he lost the Bechorah because of that. He was the firstborn. Nikla Bechuraso Vinasnali. He lost he was the firstborn, and God took it away from him. Jacob took it away from him, and he gave it to me, to Joseph. He considered the Bechor of the family. Eshmalech, if I listen to you, the etre I'll be pushed away from my being the first, but considered the firstborn. Hein Adoni. These are the words that in the parsha that why he's telling her why, and that's the Midrash. It just doesn't say, and it just says Vayimoim. He rejected. He refused to lie with her, and now the Midrash is saying there was a whole dialogue between them. All these things that we just said. That he would become puzzled from being an offering brought up on the mountain, and that's a regular thing. The fathers, his father and Zayed were tested, and he'll not pass his test. He'll be God won't reveal himself to him because he'll be considered tummy at night. And he mentioned now this thing that he'll lose his Bechorah status, firstborn, which makes him as important as in the scripture that the Jewish people are called after Yosef as well as they're called after they Israel. His father's name was Israel and Yaakov. He had both names. Next, Tavrach, another thing, what he said when he said, Hey Nadoni, Misharani Madoni, I'm afraid of my master, what he'll do to me if he finds out that we were together. Amalo, she said to him, don't worry, Orachi Oni, I will kill him. Amalo, Daya, Emna, Beistaritin, shall Noapim, Elabasaritin, shall Rochim. It's enough that if I would be with you, I would be counted amongst the adulterers. I should also be counted amongst the murderers. You're going to kill him?
It's 10 o'clock now.
Okay, well, we'll finish up. So one of the things he says to her, Mishara Anima Hashem, I'm afraid of God. If I do this, Joseph told her, I am afraid of God. Amralo, Benanu. She countered saying, but he's not here on earth, but in the heavens. What are you afraid of? Allah. What are you saying? God is all over. Godlo Hashem Umuhulo Ma'od. Hashem is great and exceedingly lauded, and his greatness is beyond investigation. You don't know Hashem. Amar Rabbi Abin. Isnisa Oso Micheder Lecheder. She brought him in from room to room. Umitziton litziton. Rabbi Avinu said she led him, Joseph, from room to room and from chamber to chamber until she caused him to stand near her bed. V'hoisa avodah zarah shelo v'hoisa avodah zarah shelo chakuka l'mayla hemena. Her avodah zarah was on top of her bed. That's what which an image of her idol was engraved. V'natla sadin v'kishas paneha. She then took a sheet and covered its face of the idol. Amala Ya'us Hadain Apa Tasis. Joseph said when she did that, it is proper that you covered its face out of fear of your God. Mishakasubo Eina Hashem Chama Mishotatim B'chol Haaretz Alachas Kama V'Kama. You went and covered the idol's face. Got cheese from under this is saying, you did the right thing by covering his face, but you should know, and it's proper that you covered the face of the idol out of fear of your out of the fear of your idol. But you should know the one of whom it is written, Eine Hashem, Hema Mishotatim, B'chol Haaretz. The eyes of God are all over every place. There's no place where God doesn't see. Hence, regarding the one of whom it is written, the eyes of Hashem, they scan the whole world. How much more so must I fear, and therefore refrain from sinning against him. And then he says, I will. I'm not going to do this because it will be chatasi lakim. I will have sinned against God. It says here, it will conclude with this. That he said to her, Joseph swore to his evil inclination. He swore, and his evil inclination was saying, do it, do it, do it. But he swore that he wouldn't. And Joseph swore to his evil inclination, means because evil, and said, "By God, I will not perpetrate this great evil." And then this thing concludes. It says, "Vahi bedavra El Yosef Yomim," every day of the year she was seduced him. And he worked there. You know what he was? He was an accountant. Well, he kept the cheshbonos, the accounts. And it goes on to say that it was a day when everybody left, and different opinions. It was a holiday in the rising of the waters of the Nile, which watered all the grounds in Egypt. And some say it was a big theater play, and everybody went, but she claimed sickness and she didn't go. And when Jacob came to uh, check the books, she propositioned him and she grabbed him, and he left his coat in her hand. He saw the image. It said nobody was there in the house. No, uh, no human being there, but the image of his father projected itself onto the, and he jumped out. She grabbed him by the coat, wanted to push him down under the bed, and he jumped out of his coat, left the coat in her hands, and ran outside. And then she turned the story around that he came to seduce me, and he the normally such a thing, if Potiphar believed it, it would mean the life of the perpetrator of an attempted adultery. But it says that he knew very well his wife was a liar, and that he had great confidence in Joseph, and he knew he wouldn't do such a thing. So he said, "I got to put you in prison, but God will take care of you because I have to give her that satisfaction. It will mess things up between us if I don't. But the God will take good care of you there." And that's what happened. He went into the prison, and he spent almost 13 years in the prison. But finally, he interpreted the dreams of the butler and the baker, and he interpreted Pharaoh's dream, and that was killing him. He didn't remember, and he told him what the dream was, and he said what it was going to be the 7 years of plenty, and then the 7 years of famine, and he told him what to do. And Pharaoh said, "Hey, we ain't got another guy like this in Egypt," and made him the viceroy. And that happens all in next week's Parsha. Any questions? Anything you want to say something?
Well, except thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're all very, very welcome. And thank you for coming and listening. And we'll see each other again, hopefully in Jerusalem. But if not, let's, the Twin Cities is a good place also. Good things happening here. We had two very nice brings. One at the Minnetonka Chabad House, a new building, a beautiful new building, and one by Rabbi Shagalov's house. Two out of town speakers who were excellent, and they benefited all of us. Okay, we'll wish everybody a very good Shabbos, And
Hallelujah.
Sunday is Hanukkah, and we heard the good news that it's going to be 18 degrees below zero on Motzei Shabbos, and they'll probably be very much below on Sunday when we're going to be lighting the menorah at the Capitol. And the one who will actually light it because he'll be a Jewish boy who is pretty traditional, who's Orthodox. He's the new, but the title, it's an appointed title. He was appointed by President Trump to be the Minnesota State Attorney, not the Attorney General, but for all the matters of this, the federal attorney, and he will be lighting the menorah, God willing. And he had a couple of years ago, it was 7 above, and Senator Amy Klobuchar was there to give a speech and greetings. And I'm glad to hear about all the different places where we had huge crowds at the public lightings of the menorah. But we had a nice crowd last year. And it must have been 100 over, but it was nicer weather. And so God should help us that it should not all the time the predictions of the weather people are accurate. So let's hope it's a nice warm day.
Amen.
They and
Thank you, Rabbi.
people and hearing the talks that will be given and seeing the lighting of the Capitol menorah. All the best. Have a good Shabbos and a happy Hanukkah.
Thank
Amen.
you.
Well, hold to